I'm here with Simon Baker, curator of photography and international art of Tate, to discuss his current show, Conflict, Time, and Photography. And I guess it's sort of a show or a rumination about photography, conflict, war in particular, and sort of the passing of time. So one of the sort of first questions I wanted to talk to you about, the first principal question, is when you put the show together, was it difficult for you to make a selection given the vast amount of material surrounding the subject matter?
Yes, I mean, these things are always difficult, but at the same time, we started with a very clear idea of what we wanted to do. We didn't start with any photography or any images. We started with a book. We started with Kurt Vonnegut's book, Slaughterhouse 5, and we started with this idea of the difficulty of looking back. And many people will know this. I mean, sort of generational. Slaughterhouse 5, everybody read it up to a certain point, then nobody read it, and now people are reading it again. So Vonnegut was in Dresden when it was firebombed, and he survived this horrific event, and then subsequently took a very long time to write the book. And he says amazing things like, I wrote 5,000 pages and threw them all away. And so 24 years after this event, he wrote this incredible book. And it's a really unusual, I mean, it's very funny, it's very moving, it's extremely creative, quite an avant-garde sort of book. And we started with the idea of what would be the equivalent of that kind of thing in photography? Who took a long time to make work? How did these projects that sort of percolated over many, many years? And the first things that we started with were the Japanese photo books about Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So things like Kawada's map and Tomatsu's 1102 Nagasaki. And we began with this idea, and we actually began with this question of why was it that sort of 15 to 20 years later, after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there were these really incredible bodies of work that really changed the paradigm for photography, for the book, and a really powerful work. And we sort of began with that, and then started thinking, okay, well, if that's one moment, what about works that were made even further away? And in Europe at the moment, there's a lot of attention on the centenary of the First World War. So it seemed that was 100 years later seemed like something interesting. What about work that's made now about the First World War? And then we sort of looked in between. But there wasn't an attempt, really have to say this, we really weren't trying to do a comprehensive every conflict ever. It was really starting with the concept and then looking at whose work was really relevant. And one of the side effects of that is that quite a few people are in the show several times because that's their practice. Luc Delahaye's practice really engages with these ideas, as does Taryn Simons, as does
Berberg
and Chanarin. Joe Ratcliffe is in the show several times. Ursula Schultz-Dornberg is in the show in 2 places. So it seemed as if there's actually a kind of photographer for whom this is a really important way of working. And also maybe the surprise, Don McCullin is in the show in 3 places. Right at the beginning, in sort of photojournalistic mode. In the middle, visiting Berlin 16 years after the end of the war. And then at the end, this beautiful photograph of the battlefields of the Somme.